Chris in central Pennsylvania. Wow. Salty tears and chest pains. That's the order of the day for so called rugby fans around the globe, particularly in France and in England. Not so much in New Zealand, where at least a degree of respect is there after what many are actually calling the greatest Rugby World Cup final in history. I don't know if I'm one of those calling it the greatest Rugby World Cup final in history. It was pretty tense, pretty intense, and wall to wall action, wall to wall excitement, wall to wall incredible defense. I'd say that. It was one of the best ones ever. I don't know if it was the best, but lots of salty, salty tears, particularly from whiny England fans. My goodness, go to the BBC story on the World Cup and look at the tears flowing from England fans, the lies and misrepresentations, distortion. Rossi's brand of rugby is so terrible. The defense. Did you see the game against France? The first half, Monty Lubick and Kobus Reinach lit the field up. The attacking style of the Springboks, and when they attacked, they played so much better. It was absolutely incredible, that game. But the memory span of apparently some English rugby fans is about as long as their appendage. Pretty short. They can't remember what happened in that game because all they remember is the tears and agony of defeat, losing to the Springboks 16-15. What is remarkable about this World Cup is the horrific officiating that took place in it, and how somehow fans still tuned into it. The stadiums were still full in the knockout stage. It's pretty incredible and well done by those French fans who went to the games, but at the same time, a degree of criticism for those whiny French fans who had the audacity to whistle and hoot and holler during the kicker kicking, their treatment of Owen Farrell, their treatment of Andre Pollard, their salty tears at having lost despite feeling the best French side ever. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. Show a little respect for the game and for the players. You don't like the players, you can boo them after they miss the kick or after they make the kick. But this shameful, childish, juvenile behavior of French fans, England fans, is ridiculous. Now, before we go any further, I'm kind of cold. The temperatures dropped precipitously here. It was so warm yesterday that the air conditioning automatically kicked on in my house. That's how it's fall, almost winter, and the air conditioning kicked on, and it was cooking yesterday. Well, now I'm sitting outside, and the temperatures dropped precipitously. There's been rain. It's, I'd say, at least 30 degrees cooler, maybe 40 degrees cooler Fahrenheit, and it's chilly. But I wanted to show you this shirt before I go any further. This is from the 2019, and this is for the whiny England fans and the whiny France fans, and not so much New Zealand. Respect for their fans, but here you go. There you go. Champions. That's right. Champions Springboks 2019. We'll have one of these for 2023 coming up. Champions. We are the champions once again. And for those of you hate wankers who go, well, you're not South African. You don't have to be South African to be a South African rugby fan. I've been a South African rugby fan since long before most of you people make these asinine comments or ever thought or a gleam in daddy's eye. Anyway, let me put something on because it's a bit chilly out here. I even brought a scarf out. So don't worry, I'm sticking with Springboks kit. But this is much warmer, so let's get this bad boy on. Woo, yeah, there we go. That's much better. And once again, I can't see the text very well on the screen, so my apologies if I'm not addressing your comments in the text. But yeah, so let's talk about this game, and let's talk about the World Cup in general. First off, isn't it truly amazing that the Springboks have won 3 games, the quarterfinal 29-28 over France, the semifinal 16-15 over England, and the final 12-11 over New Zealand by a grand total of 3 points. Wow. Now, I will give credit to the New Zealand Herald and their writer. They looked at the game, they paid attention, and they admitted honestly that in their view that the red card that Sam Cane got was correct. And also admitted that Siya Kolisi was crouching and the mitigation was there, and his yellow card was just a yellow card. That takes a lot of fortitude and moral high ground to be honest about that, and I agree with that. Sam Cane's card was harsh, but it was legitimate under the rules, and the officials did nothing wrong. Siya Kolisi's card was harsh. It was unfortunate, but in retrospect, and even at the time, it was warranted. So, yeah. So, the officials got those 2 right. Anyway, the one that was awarded after taking out Bongi Mbanabi, boy, conspiracy theorists can't help but say, well, that was intentional. They took out our hooker. They went for him. They injured him in the first 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 27 seconds for Shannon Frizzell. I don't know about that, but it was unfortunate, especially after all the build-up to this World Cup and all the whining and screaming about, oh, Bongi's a racist, oh, he's a racist, he said, vit cunt. The nonsense associated with that, all that build-up whether Bongi was going to be allowed to play, whether Tom Curry was going to be allowed to play, and all the stupid comments from people about that, it all faded away. And it was all academic because Bongi Mbonambi had no impact on the game. Injured just 2 minutes and 27 seconds into the game. But they didn't take him out as an injury. They took him out as a tactical replacement, which meant he could have come back in. I think they did that just to keep the All Blacks off guard, but it was clear that Bongi Mbonambi was not coming back in the game, and he never did come back in the game and had no impact. Dion Fourie did a great job. Some people say his lineouts were poor, but the hoist from the Bucks was poor, and the handwork by Etzebeth and others was not the greatest. Dion's throws, I think only one, maybe two of them were really his fault. The rest were his teammates. But his play on the pitch was dogged and unbelievable. Get out of here, you little shits. Freaking birds trying to fly over here at my house. Piss off. Footsec, this is not your domain. I pay the mortgage and the taxes, not you, stupid birds. Anyway, yeah, they actually come over trying to land right here. I guess they didn't see me. Now they're trying to find an alternate way to get on this porch. But anyway, so let's talk about this game in particular, whether it was the greatest Rugby World Cup final ever. I think that's debatable. I don't know if it was. There were certainly grand moments in this. But what about a couple of things were highly underrated and never really focused on this game? Currently, Arendse didn't have a great game offensively. Didn't see much out of him, but boy, he saved the game on a tackle in that corner when he got over there and made that tackle. That was unbelievable. Driving a player into touch. Brilliant job. Backline did a fantastic job and not getting credit for it. The game itself, what did I say to the Bucks? Take the points on offer, take the points on offer. I thought one time when they were down there about 7 meters away, they were actually going to try for the line out, but they didn't. They took the points and they won. Now, for all the whining from England fans about how South Africa didn't deserve this, how Etzebeth is a cheat, he deserved yellow cards, a serial offender, how their style of rugby is boring, the Springboks are trying to attack. They just didn't complete. They continually tried to attack in this game. They just failed to get it done. So the whining about them taking points was smart of them to take points, and they won the game. It's hardly the first World Cup decided by no tries. Do people forget the 95 World Cup in which Joel Stransky kicked that drop goal in extra time and South Africa won their first World Cup? Does anyone forget that turgid World Cup in New Zealand in 2011 when New Zealand beat France? Was it 9-6? Ugh, what an ugly, horrible, boring ass freaking Rugby World Cup final that was. This was anything but boring. It was intense for both sides. And a lot of people will complain about Sam Cane going out, but as the New Zealand Herald rightly said, it was legitimate and they have to deal with it. Now, Sam Cane, for his part, is saying to the New Zealand press, this is something I'll have to live with the rest of my life. Why? It's a freaking game, Sam. I know you're emotional. I know you're crushed. I know it's difficult, but you're a fantastic player. And this isn't the end of the world. You're not in Gaza. You're not in Cabo Delgado. You're not in Myanmar. You're not in Ukraine. Wake up and smell the coffee, folks. Look, I'm not attacking Sam Cane. He just lost a game. It's emotional. I get it. I appreciate that. It's a tough loss. But tomorrow's another day. And the All Blacks are a great side, and they'll be back. And they'll be in fine form in the Rugby Championship and Test matches coming up. And in 4 years, they can bet out revenge if they're up to the task. But Sam Cane doesn't have to live with this for the rest of his life. That's the sort of comment that leads people to depression and self-harm. Stop it. Stop it. Full stop. You made a poor tackle. You didn't pick up an automatic weapon and start shooting people in a shopping mall. You didn't rob your neighbors. You didn't assault anyone. You made a poor tackle. Sia was forced into a poor tackle, but arguably it was a poor tackle as well. Let's get over that. Let's stop blaming Sam Cane if you're a New Zealand fan. Let's stop blaming the TMO if you're a New Zealand fan, or more importantly, if you're an England or France fan. This was a rugby game. Sam Cane is not at fault. He made a poor tackle. He was coming at an awkward angle. He wasn't coming head on. He was coming from the side, and Jesse was running sideways. They're both running sideways on the pitch. These things happen in rugby. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. So it's not because Sam Cane went out. In fact, the All Blacks should be praised for their incredible perseverance and their determination to stay in this game. Now, they had a bit of hope when Sia Khaleesi got that card, and like, all right, now we're even. But they still couldn't break through the Springboks even then. The Springboks did give up points during that time. But let's be honest. Here's another thing. You know, a lot of whining, complaining about the officiating and about the TMO. Let's just be honest. New Zealand never scored a try. That was not a try. He threw the ball. He threw the ball forward. He's behind the line. You can see the chalk. You can see the ball go forward, and you see where it's picked up in front of the line, and a try is scored by Beauden Barrett. Not a try. Not a try, ladies and gentlemen. How can we get a TMO review for a knock-on that took place 40 seconds prior, several times, But we can't get a TMO review on that try. If nothing else, the TMO should have told Wayne Barnes the try is good. Why did Wayne Barnes go to the booth? He immediately called a try on what was clearly a forward pass. Or a knock-on as the guy's falling down on the ground. He releases the ball forward like this. So, look, people can whine and cry back and forth, but New Zealand didn't get a try. They were awarded a try, but they didn't score a try. So, there you go. You take the try off, and it's 12-6, which is what the score was at halftime. So, it was a titanic struggle, and the Springboks brought the big boys. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you think of the Springboks, whatever you think of rugby, whatever you think, you've got to have major respect for a guy who was out for a long time, had injury, came back, and was not really effective for his first several games, which is not surprising. He hadn't played Test rugby in a long time. But as this World Cup came and progressed, he got stronger and stronger. And in the final, Peter Steph du Toit, 28 frickin' tackles. 14 in the first half, 14 in the second half. He's a warrior. He went the whole way. And these weren't just tackles. These were game-disrupting tackles. Taking out Will Jordan, taking out Aaron Smith. Unbelievable. Peter Steph du Toit, my man of the match, hands down, easily, Peter Steph du Toit, the man of the match. No question about it. It was amazing. I did put up for my viewers during the live broadcast I did, which had a very disappointing crowd. So shame on all you people watching the game live instead of listening to Rugby Ascendant. Just kidding. But only 3,000 plus people watched it. That was very disappointing. I mean, I get URC games with 25,000 viewers. I get Wales against the Springboks, 30,000 people tune in. And shame on YouTube for not telling people about my broadcast. Only about half my viewers who showed up even got a notification that game was live. Most others didn't. Meanwhile, another channel managed to get 20% of their viewership. I wish I got 20%. We had 1,000 people. But anyway, enough whining about that. So let's get back to this game. This game was unbelievable, folks. Peter Steph du Toit. Now, I also gave my viewers an opportunity to pick the man of the match, their selection. And I put Peter Steph du Toit, I put Dion Ferree up there, and I put Dwayne from, I think, was it Vermeulen? Anyway, but overwhelmingly, my viewers picked 3-1. 75% of the viewers picked Peter Steph du Toit, and there's no question about it. He was clearly man of the match. Amazing stuff. Now, Oxenche came off the bench, and unfortunately didn't have the same impact he had in the England game, where he helped change the dynamics of the scrum and turn things around. So Wayne Barnes will come under a lot of criticism for this game, and I've criticized Wayne Barnes for games he's called against the Springboks in the past, as well as Ben O'Keefe, or as many people like to call him, Ben the Thief. I call him Ben, blind as bat, Ben O'Keefe. Yeah, people can criticize O'Keefe, and that's certainly warranted, and Nick Berry. How's he hurt by reputation? Really? Dude, you got the bronze final. Obviously, you weren't hurt by it all because World Rugby protects its own, and its own are its officials and its governing body and such, not unions and not coaches, and not unless they're from the traditional rugby nations of Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, France, New Zealand. Then they protect them, but everyone else is just fair game. They'll come after you and sanction you hard. Look at the gift that was given to Owen Farrell. Look at the gift that was given to Johnny Sexton for his atrocious conduct. And Johnny Sexton goes out a whiny guy. It's a shame. He has a storied career, but he goes out a whiny little biatch. His behavior in the Champions Cup was reprehensible, and he shouldn't have been in the World Cup. He should have been banned, but he was there. Anyway, let's get on from that. This game, the Springboks were outgained on the ground. The All Blacks gained a lot more ground, but the All Blacks could never get the traction they needed down close, except for when they had the knock-on and were awarded a try or a forward pass. Take your pick. It was one of the two, a forward pass or a knock-on. Take your pick. But this was beyond comprehension. How, ooh, there's a cardinal. I haven't seen a cardinal here in a while. It's male. He's hanging around the top of one of my trees. Sorry, folks. Birds are interesting. They're the only dinosaurs we have left other than our politicians. That big meteor that landed in the Caribbean Basin millions of years ago wiped out the dinosaurs and much life on this planet. But birds are the descendants of dinosaurs. Bye-bye. There goes the cardinal. So aside from politicians, the only dinosaurs we have are birds today. And maybe some lizards, I suppose. Add them to the mix. But the Springboks won this game with grit and determination, and they are now the only nation to win 4 Rugby World Cups. 4 Rugby World Cups. 95, 2007, 2019, and 2023. And if you look at the trophy, the last 4 World Cup winners are 2011 New Zealand, 2015 New Zealand, 2019 South Africa, 2023 South Africa. Only one Northern Hemisphere team has ever won the Rugby World Cup. That would be England in 2003 when the game was in Australia. Johnny Wilkinson, the famed Johnny Wilkinson, was their their team captain, and they won that World Cup. The only Northern Hemisphere team to ever win a World Cup. This was the World Cup when they said that the Northern Hemisphere was going to dominate the Southern Hemisphere. And that's, I suppose, because the Wallabies were in disarray. The All Blacks were unclear who they were. South Africa was an unknown entity. People weren't sure because of the way the team kept getting switched up with the line out, what was going to happen in this World Cup. But quite frankly, how did anyone come to that conclusion? I never came to that conclusion. I mean, let's look at the Northern Hemisphere teams that were going to compete in this World Cup. France, a dominant team, one of the best sides in the world, a top 1, 2, or 3 team, and maybe the best in the world. They had proven it, and they were up to the task. They're hosting the World Cup at home and arguably had the best French side ever. Fair enough. So France, well, that would be the one. England, disastrous team, beaten by Fiji in the build-up to this World Cup, not knowing where they're at, having gotten rid of a coach, Eddie Jones, and then replaced him with another coach, with Steve Borthwick, a team that's trying to sort out who it was. So England was an unknown entity and probably not a strong team. Wales, a team that was atrocious in the Six Nations, that has looked sloppy in the build-up to the World Cup. Wales, now. Ireland. Ireland's arguably one of their best teams ever, but we know Ireland. Ireland always choke in a quarterfinal. They've never gotten past the quarterfinal stage, even though they've gotten there repeatedly. And once again, Ireland, with arguably the best team they've ever fielded, Caitlin Doris, Bundy Aki, Hugo Keenan, Johnny Sexton, the list goes on. Jamison Gibson Park. This was an incredible Irish side, but they just didn't get it done. Now, I didn't hear a lot of belly aching about the play of New Zealand and Ireland when they had some questionable moments in their game, because it was an epic game. And I didn't hear a lot of belly aching other than from French fans about South Africa and France in their game, which was even better than the Ireland-New Zealand game in the quarterfinals. In the semifinals, lots of England fans with salty tears, and that's understandable. They're emotional after their loss, thinking they could go on when they didn't have it in them. They didn't have it in them. Other than Owen Farrell whining all the time to the official, it really wasn't that exciting watching England play. But look, England owned South Africa for 65 minutes. But just like the All Blacks, you have to own your opponent for 80 minutes after the hooter blows, when the official blows his whistle. Then you've got it. You cannot take your foot off the gas, and that's what happened. The English were overwhelmed by the bomb squad, by the bench of South Africa, and they lost the game. Oxenche stabilized the scrum. We started winning scrum penalties. We improved in the line out, and then we just had a better attacking game there and got that try from R.G. Snyman. It was brilliant, and that is an underrated, under-noticed moment in this World Cup. Line out. Dion Free gets the line out around the 22, peels away, finds a big gap, runs down about 5 meters before he's tackled. R.G. Snyman gets the ball, goes back and forth, then R.G. Snyman gets it. He drives across and gets it. Dion Free made that try happen. That won that game. Of course, Pollard had to make that penalty kick to take it to 16-15, but without that try, South Africa sits at home, and we have the salty tears, not the England fans. So yeah, what an interesting thing. But go to the BBC website when you get a chance, folks, and look at the whiny, bitchy, crying, sad, pathetic nonsense that is being put on there by so-called rugby supporters. Meanwhile, New Zealand fans and South African fans are showing great degrees, for the most part. There's obviously the outliers, but they're, for the most part, showing great respect for their opponent. New Zealand deserves all the credit in the world for their performance in this World Cup. They came in, they were beaten by a French side who played a better game. Didn't face them. They came back. They knew that we had a precedent for a team losing a pool stage game and winning a World Cup. It was South Africa in 2019. Prior to that, every World Cup winning team had won every match and then won the World Cup. So South Africa set the precedent. So they knew they could do it. They came back and they played very well, and they got better and better. And they led in virtually every statistic: try, score, points scored per game. They were fantastic after that. But I always said that this is a team that's suspect, and a good defense can shut them down. You just can't have mistakes. The good news is for the Springboks, by and large, they didn't have these mistakes in this game. Excuse me. They didn't have these mistakes. I was very concerned about Beauden Barrett finding space in the middle of the pitch, chipping the ball up there, and it happened a couple of times, but the Springboks were able to recover and get it under control. Will Jordan was not the threat that I thought he might be. Rico Ioane was not the threat, although Rico Ioane nearly scored a try. If it wasn't for Kurt Arendse, he would have gotten a try. Rico Ioane was not the threat that I thought it would be. Richie Monga was the threat I expected. Aaron Smith was absolutely incredible. What a classy guy. What the one guy on the pitch who put on a smile and hugged his kids and congratulated people and carried himself as a gentleman, Aaron Smith. major props to Aaron Smith and whatever he does after this. That was incredible classy. Speaking of classy, if you watch the game after the game, Sia Khaleesi was interviewed, and his comments about his opponent were very magnanimous and very generous and very polite and respectful. But what he said about what this does for South Africa, this is the South Africa that South Africans want, not the South Africa of the race hustling ANC. They want the Springboks. They want a team that comes together. They don't care what people's ethnicity is. They are South Africans first and foremost, and they're Springboks. And that's what it was. And he said it in a way that was just absolutely brilliant. I don't know if these are extemporaneous comments that came to his mind while it was going on, or if Sia had thought about this before the game. He probably thought about it before the game. If we win, what will I say? If we lose, what will I say? Whatever the case is, he delivered it flawlessly. It was brilliant. Whatever your thoughts on Sia Khaleesi, those who cut up their Springbok jerseys a couple of years ago when he made stupid comments about having to learn Afrikaans, which to me sound more like out of ignorance rather than malice. Sia Khaleesi was brilliant in the post-game comments, and he was great on the pitch until he was taken out. Jasper Wiese got in there late. He had not been on the pitch for a few games, but Jasper Wiese is a key part now. This is Dwayne Vermeulen's swan song. That's it. He goes out a double back-to-back champion. Congratulations, Dwayne Vermeulen. Now, condolences to and disappointment for Sam Whitelock, who could have won his third World Cup. He would have been the first rugby player to win 3 World Cups. Of course, he won in 2011 and 2015, and this is the end of his career, so he goes out with 2. Unbelievable. But I think in the next World Cup, we're not going to see the likes of Dwayne Vermeulen. We're not going to see Willie Leroux. He'll be done. I doubt we'll see Dion Fourie, which is a shame. He should have been a Springbok 10 years ago. He wasn't, and he proved his worth in this World Cup and in the test matches last year and this year. We will not see the likes, I think, possibly of Makazole and Pippi. He may age out. We will not see the likes, possibly even of Cheslin Kolbe. He'll be 34. He had his birthday, just had his birthday. Cheslin Kolbe will be 34 in the next World Cup. So we might not see him. And this may be the end of an era for Springboks rugby. Ross Erasmus leaving. Jacques Nienaber is gone for sure. He's going to go be an assistant coach after winning a World Cup. You're an assistant coach. That's hard to fathom. It makes you question about who was really coaching this side. But anyway, he goes to England. So there's an Ireland. He's going to Europe. So this is maybe a passing of the torch to younger players like the Keenan Moody's and the Kurtley Aronsays and the Damien Willemse, who's just, 25 or 27? Willemse is 25. Will we see another performance by Eben Etzebeth? Maybe. He's not too old yet. Franco Mostart should be back. But a lot of these players will not be returning. We'll never see them in a World Cup again. And that's sad. And, speaking of which, Aaron Smith, look, he's not my favorite scrum half, but the guy's a talent. He's amazing. Bowden Barrett, will he be back? I don't know. So whatever you think of this game, it was pretty awesome, pretty incredible from the tension standpoint, from the Warrior standpoint. It was a great game from that. Not a statistically great game for either side, especially for the Springboks, who didn't pick up the meters. But for the salty English fans and the salty French fans, but particularly the English fans, it's just atrocious. I'm going British sites and reading their comments today, whining about this game. Their nonsense about the style, it's boring. It brings shame to the game. Have you ever watched European rugby? My criticism of Northern Hemisphere rugby for years has been the boring, hoist the ball, kick it back and forth, and like Nas likes to say, it's like watching a tennis game. That's it. No attacking style. In fact, the Springboks in this build-up to this World Cup and in this World Cup had a lot of attacking style. And in fact, against France, they scored 3 tries in the first half. Unfortunately, their leaky defense in that game gave up 3 tries. So unfortunately, that was the case. But very exciting attacking rugby against a great team. Against Ireland, I don't know what the Springboks were doing. That was just that's got to be an outlier. That was just an atrocious performance. People said that was such a great game. I was there. I went to every pool stage game in this World Cup, and for the Springboks, not for every pool stage game, for the Springboks, and that game was turgid from a fan's point of view. And also, it was unfair. The officiating was atrocious. But look, we can cry about the officiating, but if players get it done and we score lots of points and we shut the other team down, it doesn't matter if you are called for a knock on when you didn't knock it on, or you do knock on, it doesn't get called, or you have a right side flanker collapse in a mall, or a hooker collapses, the prop collapses in a mall, and or you stand up in a mall. If it goes against you, it doesn't matter if you score, if you shut the other team down, and that's the bottom line. New Zealand in this game, for the salty England fans who are not from New Zealand, but they're crying in their bill nonetheless. For those salty English fans, New Zealand missed a conversion, which would have given them 7 points instead of 5. New Zealand missed a penalty late in the game, which would have given them the lead and likely won the game. So for all your whining about the TMO and all your whining about the Springboks and all your whining about the style that you didn't appreciate, the All Blacks didn't score 28 points. I predicted a 29-26 game. I thought it'd be much more free-flowing and there'd be a lot of play going on, and I expected some defensive lapses from the Springboks. They nearly had them. Ooh, Curtly Arnsay saved us in that corner. What an incredible tackle to get over there and stop that score from happening on Rico Ioane. Yeah, look, say what you want, folks, but it was a pretty entertaining game. It was pretty exciting. It was pretty interesting. But what I have to say is that, hey, guess what? Defending Rugby World Cup champions once again. Back-to-back Rugby World Cup championships. The England fans are still salty because of 2019. They thought they had this in the bag. They were looking past the Springboks in that final. They had played their final against the All Blacks in an incredible victory in which they shut down New Zealand and thrashed them. And so they're walking around with their chest all puffed out and their head high in the air. We are the champions. Unfortunately, Queen didn't play that night for England in 2019. It played for South Africa, who came to the game and thoroughly thrashed and dominated the All Blacks in that game. Fantastic, exciting stuff from Makazole and Pimpy, and of course from Ches and Colby. But that's the first time we ever had a try in a World Cup final, wasn't it? In 2019. Yeah. In 1995, nothing but kicks. In 2007, nothing but kicks. 2019, we finally got a couple tries. And in 2023, the Springboks win the World Cup for a 4th time. This time, once again, 3 of the 4 World Cups with no tries. Wow. By the way, that try scored by Beauden Barrett, which wasn't a try. They said that was the first try ever scored against the Springboks. I guess the England didn't score a try. I'm trying to remember 2019, if that's the case. In 4 World Cups, they only gave up 1 try. What does that say about domination? And what does it say about Northern Hemisphere rugby? 1 World Cup since 87. 87, New Zealand. 91, Australia. Is that right? I think Australia won 91. 95, South Africa. 99, Australia. 2003, England, the only Northern Hemisphere victory. 2007, South Africa. 2011, New Zealand. 2015, New Zealand. 2019, South Africa. And 2023, South Africa. So much for the domination of the Northern Hemisphere. Look, I'm not denigrating entirely. I'm just saying that, people with their storylines really don't think these things through sometimes. I got the call wrong, but that was people asking me before the build-up. On my rugby ascendant, or not, on my Super Brew pick, I picked South Africa to win by 6. They win by 1, so I get both points. It's like the last game when Ireland and New Zealand were playing, and Ronaldo asked me, who you picking? I said Ireland, but on Super Brew, where it matters, I picked New Zealand. I got the victory. So it's over, folks. Now we have URC, United Rugby Championship, to focus on over the next several months. Major League Rugby will start again in late January or February here in the United States, and time to focus on that as well. And then the test window will open up again. So that's exciting stuff. I don't know if there's any test matches scheduled now in November for the teams. I'll have to take a look and see. I don't think there is World Cup year. But that's it. So this ball, by the way, very disappointed in the manufacturers of this ball. Who made this thing? Does it say? It doesn't say who made this. Yeah, of course not. This ball can't hold air. This thing have to inflate once a week with all the rugby unions on it for the World Cup. This is one they sell. And I picked this up in France. So it's pretty lame. Disappointing. But such is life. We could have bigger problems in life than that. So there you go. Rugby World Cup 2023, South Africa. Cool beans. Cool beans. Anyway, so yeah. What are your thoughts, folks? You can chat with each other in this because I can't really read the chat in here as we do this broadcast. But again, I didn't plan on doing this broadcast, but thanks for being here, everybody who's here. I see we have a large number of viewers. This is more than we've had in the live stream in donkey years. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, why don't you become one? Only takes a second. You'll get cogent analysis and commentary about a host of subjects, a variety of subjects: language, culture, politics, history, political science, name it, you'll get it here. We interview people as diverse as Dr. Victor Davis Hanson on U.S. politics, to Kevin Sorbo, the actor Hercules, and Captain Dylan Hunt from the Andromeda Ascendant, to political figures in South Africa, cultural figures, musicians, artists, regular everyday folks across South Africa and around the world. I haven't done interviews of late, but that's time to come back. I've been traveling for the last 3 months between South Africa and France for the World Cup. I've been very busy, and so it's time to get back into those things. Plus, I've also had some consulting work that I've been doing, which has eaten up my time. But now it's time to get back to doing interviews. We'll be doing some more interviews coming up very soon. You may find today on this channel I just released a video which was from my public appearance in Rondebosch at the Reformation Society back in late August when I was in South Africa. And this one is a discussion about South Africa and U.S. elections in 2024. So, but back to the rugby. Let's get back to this game. Look, the bench made a difference for South Africa, but not quite the same difference it made in the last two games. In this game, Deon Fourie came in at 2 minutes and 27 seconds and went the rest of the way. Did you see his shorts? Oh my goodness. Deon Fourie's shorts were completely black. Oh my goodness. Deon Fourie's shorts were so stained. He was a warrior out there, and he earned his World Cup. So great to see. I can't wait to see the Stormers players return to the Stormers lineup as world champions. That's pretty incredible stuff. Deon Fourie was absolutely incredible. Who else we had out there came off the bench and made a big impact? Quagga Smith. Oh my goodness. They talk about unsung hero. Quagga Smith off the bench once again absolutely gets it done. 2 key steals. Teaming up with Faf de Klerk. Faf was a demon. I'll give him credit in this game. Faf made a lot of tackles, especially tackles from behind when other players missed, and he came up from behind and tackled people. He made a menace of himself, kind of like Cobus Reinach had done in those previous 2 games. Faf did the same sort of thing here. Really, really well done. But Quagga Smith off the bench, what an incredible performance by Quagga Smith coming in late. The former Blitzbach, just amazing player. So many of the Springboks who grow up in that Blitzbach system and then graduate to 15s are just amazing players, and he's one of them. And some other players that aren't here, of course, Werner Koch, although he seems to have lost a step or two lately. I don't know what's going on with Werner. But Ruad Nel, who remains a great player. Of course, we had Siabatla Sanatla. The list goes on and on. Former Blitzbach players who become starters in Currie Cup, in Super Rugby, in now URC, and also make it up to the Springboks. Just amazing stuff. But this game had it all. It had incredible defense. It had some breakaway plays. It had absolutely monster performances by players. And let me just throw out those monster performances once again. In this game, monster performances from Pieter Steph du Toit. He was the stud of the game, absolutely shutting down the All Blacks. Game-changing tackles more than once. 28 tackles by Pieter Steph du Toit. Man, what an incredible stuff. If he played like this all the time, he'd be Rugby Player of the Year again. So Pieter Steph du Toit, monster performance. I think, despite some of the complaints about the lineouts, I think Deon Fourie was absolutely incredible coming. But I'm biased. I'm a huge fan. But I think he was incredible if you're objective coming off the bench. The lineouts were not so nice, but everything else was brilliant on his part. Quagga Smith coming in late was good. Eben Etzebeth had a heck of a game. Not really spoken much about, but he had a heck of a game. I think Jesse Creel had a decent game here, made some key plays, but wouldn't quite rise up to the level he had in the previous games. The same with De Allende. On the All Black side, once again, Aaron Smith, fantastic. And Richie Monga had a good game. Artie Sevilla was just a beast. Artie Sevilla, I don't know how many meters he gained, but he touched the ball repeatedly in the middle of the field and drove crashing into the Springboks line, which sucked players in, open space up on the outside occasionally. But I'll tell you, this was one where, honestly, I was concerned, very concerned that the All Blacks would get a penalty late in the game and they would kick it and win the game. And it nearly happened, but the kick was missed. It went wide left. I was like, whew, 48 meters, it was missed. That's one that Pollard probably would have made money for the Springboks. But it was missed on the All Black side. And that was late in the game. Those 3 points would have won the game. Would have won the game. Would have been 14-12, not 12-11. So the salty tears that we're hearing, and the English fans, this is pathetic, really sad. They can't be honest about the game. Look, when we suck, I'm honest about it. When I think the officiating is bad, I'm honest about it. when I think the opponent has done well, I'm honest about it, whether they won or look. When South Africa lost in the Rugby Championship in Auckland, and the All Blacks scored 3 tries in the first 18 minutes, I covered that game live, play-by-play and color commentary. And during and after the game, I was honest about it. South Africa looked like they had lead shoes on, like they had sand in their boots, like they couldn't move. They were standing around like tourists watching all the All Blacks run past them and score tries. And that wasn't the officiating. That wasn't the All Blacks being amazing. That was South Africa being pathetic. And I said that. And I was honest about it. I didn't blame the officials. I didn't blame the style of play. I blamed the Springboks for their poor execution. When the Springboks thrashed the All Blacks at Twickenham, I didn't get to watch the game. That was the day that I flew back from South Africa. But I did watch it after the fact and do a kind of after post facto, oh, great. Now somebody's got a saw out. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. The birds aren't enough. We got to get a saw out. But when they thrashed them at Twickenham, I watched the game after the fact. I did a broadcast on it. And I was straightforward. The Springboks just tore them apart. So, it'd be nice if people were more honest when it comes to sports, but we all have our biases. I'm biased in favor of the Springboks, but I try to be objective about these things. And that's how it was about the cards last night. The card that was issued on Shannon Frizzell in the first couple of minutes when Bongian Benabi went out, I wasn't sure that was a card for hitting his leg. I thought it should have been a card for a neck roll. There's a clear neck roll there. They're not even discussed by the TMO. He has Bongi by the neck and he rips him over like this, and then he lands on his leg. I didn't even know that was the problem because I didn't see that in the play. I was seeing the camera angle from the front where the neck roll was, and it never was a neck roll. So my argument was it should be a card for a neck roll, or at least a penalty for a neck roll. I mean, it wound up being a card. So on the card that went to Sam Cane, that card, that was clearly a card, clearly a yellow, probably a red was my thought from the very beginning, and not just because Sam Cane got the card, but because of what happened. It was poor tackling. He was upright. He went straight into his head, and Jesse Creel was not bent over, not turning his direction. He was running right that way. So, yeah, and as I said, good on the New Zealand Herald, where the journalist actually admits that, hey, that's what happened. All Black fans can't feel hard done by that red card. It was a correct call. But at the same time, then he also whines about Evan Etzebeth not getting any cards. They hate Evan Etzebeth. He's like the Bismarck Duplessis of 2023. They're hating him in New Zealand. They're hating him in France. And they're hating him in England. Call him a serial offender for yellow cards. It's utter nonsense, but that's how I feel. So, when Sia Khaleesi got his card, my first response, that was emotional, and I corrected myself, was, aha, see, it's payback. Now they got us now. They're evening things out. Now we get our yellow card. Let's hope it's not a red card. But when the replay was shown, I said quite honestly that it's clear that Sia did make head contact, and it does need to be a card. Fortunately, it wasn't a red card, and Sia came back. But honestly, we can play counterfactual, and people can say that the reason New Zealand lost Sam Cane was off the pitch. No. That's not why they lost. New Zealand, with Sam Cane off the pitch, missed a conversion on a try, missed a penalty conversion late in the game that would have won the game for them. That's 5 points. 5 points. Put those 5 points on the board, and they have 16 to 12. They win the game. So you can't blame Sam Cane going off. Well, but what about this? What about that? Well, you can play counterfactuals all day. Sam Cane went off at 28 minutes in the game. That's a lot of game left. That's a lot of game. That's 50 minutes a game. 52 minutes of the game remaining. You're down 14 players. It's tough. Then I saw, comments from New Zealand fans, not England fans, but New Zealand fans saying that because they don't like Ian Foster, that, of all the red cards in the Rugby World Cup issued to the All Blacks, the vast majority of them come when he's been a coach, and then 2 came when he's assistant coach. So they really don't like Ian Foster. I think they're going to be glad to see the backside of him. But here's the thing. Ian Foster didn't get the red cards. The players on the pitch got the red cards. So you can blame Ian Foster all you want, but Ian Foster didn't get the red cards. So we go to a new era for Springbok rugby here, folks. Now, Jacques Nienaber is done. He leaves as a champion, like Jake White did in 2007. Will Jacques Nienaber coach international rugby side again? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens in his role as an assistant rugby coach up in Europe. And what goes on with Rossi Erasmus now? It's unclear. He's still under contract, I think, for another year with South African Rugby Union. So what happens with Rossi now? Does he remain the director of rugby? Does he come back down? Or maybe Rossi hits the treadmill. Ooh. I don't know if Rossi's not well, but man, he's been packing on the weight lately. For those, that's not fat shaming for you people who can't make the distinction. I'm just saying that, man, I'm worried about the guy's health. He's gone from a somewhat fit guy in just a few months to a guy that's really ballooned up. I hope he doesn't have a health issue. Can't be healthy to gain that much so quickly. But anyway, Rossi Erasmus, what happens with him in the future, I don't know. But we will see. And who will be the next Springbok coach? That's the matter of debate, a matter of conjecture. And I would say the odds-on favorite is Stick. Mzwandile Stick is going to be the next Springboks head coach for a number of reasons. Number one, he's probably got the skills. He's been there. He knows the system, and he's been part of this organization. And by all accounts, he's a leader. I'm not on the field to see what kind of leader he is, but by all accounts, he's a leader. So Stick is probably their front runner. Some people are saying they want John Dobson from the Stormers to become the head coach. I think he's a dark horse long shot. But I think Stick will be the head coach because of all the things I just said. But also, let's just be honest, South African Rugby Union is not exactly non-racial. They have been trying to cut white players out of rugby for years, and the same with coaches. They brought coaches in who weren't up to snuff. They have brought players in who weren't up to snuff simply based on skin pigmentation instead of being the best merit. In this case, I think Stick is probably the guy that has the most merit to be the next head coach for South Africa's rugby. I can be wrong in my assessment, but that's my assessment. And I think Stick will be the next coach. We'll see that. And let's be honest, the fact that he's a black South African is a huge thing in his favor when it comes to a decision by South African Rugby Union. They can deny it, but it's a statement of fact, and so we'll see that. I mean, some of the ridiculous comments I saw in a couple of my videos before the World Cup, one guy, clearly a black supremacist and a racist, came on, "We will take back our rugby, and we will force the Springboks to have 60% or 80% black players." And I'm like, well, what are you talking about, man? There were no Ndebele, no Kosa, no Tutu, no Tswana running around playing rugby in 1823 when the game was invented. They didn't invent the game. It was invented by this old white dude named William Webb Ellis, according to legend up there in Rugby, England. Hence, it's called rugby. Yeah, no. This is not a sport that was there. It's a sport anybody can play, and anybody's welcome to play it, and that's what we have today. But the racist nonsense of promoting this is taking back our game. I am sick and tired of other people cheering for New Zealand. I don't know anybody cheering for New Zealand, but I do know people in Africa who do cheer for New Zealand because they hate South Africa because their limited intellectual capacity equates the Springboks with the National Party and apartheid. That's the Springboks, nothing to do with apartheid. Yes, there was a period when black players were excluded and colored players and Indian players, but let's be honest, how many Indian players come out and play rugby? Not that many. But there was a period, but that's not the Springboks. That's a political reality people had to live in. So people need to grow up and behave themselves. But I haven't seen South African fans rooting for the All Blacks. But you know what? South African fans, if they want to root for another country, they're welcome too. I mean, I'm an American. I root for South Africa. I also root for the USA, but I root for South Africa. So people can pick a favorite team. I mean, there are people all over the world who absolutely love the All Blacks, and there are South Africans who love the All Blacks, and that's fine. But if you love the All Blacks because they're a quality side who gets it done and has a long storied tradition, that's awesome. If you support the All Blacks because you hate South Africa, well, that's a different story. And that's just a stupid way to do it. So anyway, thank you for your longevity there, Brett, and being here. So yeah. But look, by contrast, as I said, watching a game on television is very different than being in the stadium, in the stands. Both are great experiences. They can be great experiences. When I was at the Stade de France, the same stadium for last night, in the top row, literally the very top row, there was no one behind me. Nice stadium. I've been there before for the Women's World Cup 2014, but in the top row, up there, that experience was very different, very, very different. Watching that game than the people watching on TV who criticized my commentary. Oh, how can you say it was a boring game, man? It was incredible. It was the most amazing game against Ireland. No, it wasn't. It was a snorefest if you were in the stands, and the officiating was atrocious. The play decision-making by the Springboks was poor, not taking points on offer, and then, and also Ireland's stubbornness, not taking points and kicking to the corner and then turning the ball over 5 times in a row, and they're just stubborn. And it made for a low-scoring, turgid game. 13-8 was the final. So, by contrast, we have a 12-11 game last night, and last week a 16-15 game. Both games I watched on television. I called play-by-play and color commentary, and both those games were very exciting. Very tense for the nature of the game. Plus, on television, it's very different. You can hear the official in his microphone. You can hear what's going on. Commentators, sometimes they make a difference in the game, make it more interesting. I hope they make a difference all the time, as I'm a commentator as well. But it was a very different situation watching that game on television. And I don't know if it was if the greatest Rugby World Cup final ever, which many people are saying today. Again, I don't know that I agree with that. But I will say that it was absolutely incredible final, and it was tense, it was nerve-wracking, and it was anybody's game until the ball was knocked on at the end. That's the bottom line. And what more could you ask for in rugby? You could ask for better officiating, but look. Okay, let's deal with this now. Whether it's blind as a bat Ben O'Keefe or Ben O'Thief, however you call him, or whiny Nick Berry, whose reputation was destroyed by Rossi, or it's the French officials who historically have made horrible calls against the Springboks. Shall we go back and talk about the red card issued to Bismarck Duplessis in New Zealand a decade plus ago? Yeah, we could talk about those things. Whatever the case is, the officials have the hardest job in sports. They do. In basketball, the officials they run 30 feet, they stop. They run 30 feet, they stop. And they're only going a few feet side to side. They're not covering much ground. In hockey, they skate a lot. But let's be honest, other than speeding up and down the ice, a lot of times you're coasting in hockey when you're an official on the ice. And not gravity, but friction's doing the job for you as you slide across the ice. In football, they've got American football, there's 87,000 officials out there on the field. You got side judges, you got flag judges, you got people on the pitch. It's not that challenging. They're not running up and down the field. They got lots of help. Plus, they've got replay officials who jump in. In baseball, the officials don't get any exercise. You can see it. A lot of them, some are fit, but some are not. They really don't run around anywhere. In soccer, the officials pretty much walk most of the time. Very seldom are they running. They're trotting and jogging occasionally. But in rugby officials have to run. They run up and down the field. They run side to side. They're all over. They get more exercise than any player on the pitch. Therefore, they've got to be fit. Now, they're not running at the same pace as a lot of players, but they're running all the time. And their job is difficult. They have to have the laws have become so complicated. You've got to deal with the scrum, with the maul, the lineouts, with offsides. The offsides penalty is the one I think is the one it's the most difficult because it's so difficult for an official on the field to see 15 players on defense, and a lot of offsides are missed. But it is a difficult job and a real challenge for the officials, so we have to give them credit for that. But World Rugby's decision to go with the bunker in this World Cup, if they think it made the game better, I think they need to take a close look at that and relook at that because it didn't make the game better. If anything, it made it more challenging for fans to understand what the heck is going on. But I do like the fact that they don't leave the onus and burden on the official on the field. They've got someone actually looking at all the angles. That's actually a pretty good concept. It's just I think the execution was uneven. The red card on Tom Curry in the first game, against Argentina, what the hell? I mean, a lot of people still angry about that. At the time when I watched it live, I thought, red card. But then watching the replay, maybe not a red card. Namibia had red cards issued against them that were very harsh. Not all of them. Johan Dijssel on Antoine Dupont was probably warranted, but had red cards issued, and it was just and yellow cards issued that were anyway. Officiating is something that needs to be looked at very carefully by Rugby Union, as does their, I think, now ridiculous decision to expand Rugby World Cup. Rugby World Cup is now expanding in the next iteration in Australia to 24 teams. And this comes in an era when when rugby unions are destitute and have no cash to qualify and compete. And at the same time, they've instituted a system that ensures into perpetuity that the old boys network will continue to be the best teams, and tier 2 teams can't rise to be tier 1 teams. Now you're going to say, wait a second. 2 teams that are not tier 1 can qualify. Yeah, sure. Who's that going to be? Probably Fiji and Japan. Will USA, Canada, Portugal, Romania, Georgia get a chance to qualify there? Sanzar is running that. The South Africa, New Zealand, Australia rugby organization is running the 2 teams that get invitationals. So are they going to invite US and Canada? Are US and Canada going to qualify? Will Portugal get an invitation? Will Germany? Will Hong Kong? No, it's probably going to be Japan, and it's going to be Fiji. So let's just be honest. It's a formation with 12 teams. They're always going to be the same, and they'll be the top 12 teams in rugby, except for a few exceptions here and there. And I think that's unfair and unjust. Instead of fixing the game and ensuring that teams that are in tier 2 and tier 3 get to play higher ranked teams periodically, or at least every year they play someone who's high ranked. Now we've simply instituted a program that's going to exclude these countries from getting tests. The United States played France, and they played England recently, and they played Ireland recently. No, not France. They played Ireland and England recently, and they also played Scotland a few years ago and beat Scotland's B-side. I think that maybe what we can do to help these nations and improve the game of rugby is do something like South Africa did, but they didn't do it to improve rugby. They did it for their own testing of players. I was in Bristol last year, or was it earlier this year, when the Bristol Bears beat the South African A-side. The South African A-side, which had Thomas du Toit and some other big-name players on it, but not the top flight guys who were on this side. That team they could have a touring team. We could have a touring team that goes around to Portugal and to excuse me, goes around to the USA, goes around to Canada, does an America's tour, does a Europe tour, does an Asia tour. They could do that with the All Blacks. They could do that with the Springboks. They could do that with England. They could do it with Ireland. And I think that's what they should do, because that will expose them to these other teams. And maybe that's the answer. Also, I think that generates more rugby without diluting the talent, without diluting the calendar. I think that's actually a brilliant idea. So World Rugby, listen to me. I've got the answer to your woes. I've got the answer to your woes. That's the answer for going forward, folks. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. World Rugby should encourage teams like South Africa, New Zealand, maybe not Australia. Wait, bring Australia. We'll beat them. It's the Wallabies A side. They've just got their asses kicked. Wallabies. The Eagles ate my baby. The dingo ate my baby. Did the dingo eat your baby? Yeah, no. Let the Wallabies B-side or A-side tour. I'm up for that. If the Wallabies A-side tours, I'm going to get some new cleats. I'm going to getting fit and get in shape, and maybe I'll go play against them. But seriously, no, that would really be fantastic for the game. I mean, when Scotland sent their B-side over here, South Africa still, or not South Africa, USA still beat a traditional rugby nation. If the Springboks A side comes over here and we lose, well, they'll get some experience against guys who live and breathe the game. If the All Blacks B side comes over here, we played the All Blacks in Chicago. We played the All Blacks in, where's the other game at? Was it DC? Got slaughtered. Played England and have played Scotland all in the past few years. But that's over the past 5 years. That's not this year. I mean, this year, USA could have been used as a team to go against some, I think they played Wales, if I'm not mistaken. I couldn't remember, but anyway. But they could be used as a team. Canada could be used as a team. Hong Kong. But, you're not going to improve the level of quality in these games unless those unions can invest in the sport and grow the talent. And also, if they play the bigger guys. You got to play the bigger guys. That's the bottom line here. If you don't play the bigger guys, then you're never going to grow the sport. And that's the bottom line. By the way, 182 people still here at this stream. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. And if you're not a subscriber and you're watching, please become one. It doesn't cost you anything, a moment of your time, folks. We do our best to overcome harassment on platforms like this and try to bring you cogent, honest analysis. I know earlier when I started delving into some political things, the viewer total dropped. I got back to rugby and went back up. It's interesting. It's almost like YouTube is listening to my words, and if I keep talking rugby, they keep sharing this video so that people know it's out here and more people come. But when I start talking politics, woo, they depress, and I don't know if that's really what's happening, but it seems like it. But look, okay, at the end of the day, I am pretty stoked, folks. I'm pretty stoked. Back-to-back Rugby World Cup champions. South Africa win this one. This is the last scarf I purchased. I bought scarves at every game that I could. This one here was the last one I purchased, and for some reason I hadn't thought about it the entire month I've been in France. This was in Marseille that I bought this, which, by the way, was the most exciting game from a fan standpoint, and my best day that I spent in France at a game day was in Marseille. Spent the whole day down there. I linked up with one of my viewers, Samir, who's a South African who lives in Georgia. Samir and I hooked up. We hung around, did some things together, had lunch. We had a hard time finding lunch because the restaurants in Marseille shut down, like the Spanish restaurants, for siesta. I mean, the town is full of rugby fans, tens of thousands of people milling around trying to get lunch, and the Indian restaurant was closed. This other restaurant was closed. We finally found a place. We sat down, and it was funny because at that place, half a dozen people came up and recognized me from my Rugby Ascendant and or from my Colonel Chris Wyatt channel. So that was very heartwarming and rewarding for that to happen. But that was the best day. But this was the last scarf that I purchased. It's the South Africa scarf, and I realized, it's the end of the World Cup, and I'm sitting there with Samir. I'm like, you know what? I never bought the South Africa scarf. I have 2 game day scarves, match day scarves. I love those. That's a collection I have for match day scarves. Unfortunately, I got just the Scotland and just the Ireland because I got the game so early. But the other games I got there 3 hours before the game, the remaining game, no scarves left. I got to the other South Africa game, Tonga game, no scarves left. Very annoying. So, no wait, I have the Tonga. I think I have the Tonga, yeah. So I have 3 of the 4. I don't have. So I just have the Romanian one. I don't have. But I have 3 of the 4 game day scarves for South Africa. But this one's a South Africa scarf. And then, of course, what I had a few minutes ago is a rugby union scarf for the World Cup. It has all the unions on here, which is pretty cool. There you go. One side to the other, all the unions. You can see Argentina, Australia, Chile, England, Fiji, France, Georgia, Ireland, Italy, and Japan. Then below that, you've got Wales, Uruguay, Tonga, South Africa, Scotland, Samoa, Romania. Who's that? I can't see that one. And then it's not Portugal. Portugal, All Blacks, and Namibia. So that's pretty cool. All 20. Next time will be 24. So they got their work cut out for them. They got to stitch 4 more unions on there. So we'll see how that goes in the next World Cup. But yeah, that was the last scarf I bought, and what a great day that was. Samir and I had a really great time hanging out, going to the game, taking the train down before the crowds got there. We got there hours before the game started. So I had bought the game day scarf for Tonga, South Africa, which is really cool. And I remember that was red and green. You got the bright red and the green. Really nice contrast on the same scarf. So I've got that one. And then we're sitting there on the steps while these people are playing. It was really cool. Local bands and everything from housing developments are all just, it's kind of a French thing. And we were having a great time listening to them. They're jumping up in the crowd, dancing around, doing cool stuff. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't have a South Africa scarf. I ran over and got one before they ran out. So I have a Namibia scarf, and I have a World Cup, just straight World Cup scarf. But then I have game day scarves after. That's all the ones I have. So yeah, so that was very grateful for that. Listen, I've been to the World Cup in New Zealand 2011, the World Cup in England in 2015, the World Cup in Japan 2019, now the World Cup in France in 2023. The next one's in Australia. I don't know if I'm going to go. It's 4 years off. We'll see. I've also been to the Women's World Cup in 2014 and 2017. I was supposed to go in 2021, but the cowards postponed it 2022, and I had a scheduling conflict. So even though I bought tickets, I had to eat the cost of the tickets and didn't go. And it's just as well, because I watched the abysmal behavior of the American women who took a knee when our anthem was played. They do not deserve to be on the team. They should be banned from it. Meanwhile, the people that they're supposedly standing up for, people of color, these arrogant asshats on the American women's rugby side, we played Japan, and all the Japanese players stand and sing the anthem, but Americans take knees when our anthem is. They're a disgrace to the nation. They have no business in rugby or in sport. Separate your political nonsense. Do that on your own time, not on a uniform that I paid for. So the 2021, which was played in 2022, I didn't get to go, but I did go to the 2017 or 2018 Rugby World Cup sevens in San Francisco, which was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. San Francisco is going downhill rapidly, but the cup was done very well. Met Craig Joubert when I was there. It was pretty cool. And then I went to the 2022 Sevens World Cup in Cape Town, which was good, but it wasn't nearly as good as the San Francisco one. Very disappointing the way Cape Town handled it. You almost wouldn't know what was happening. So that's a lot of World Cups. And in between that, I also went in 2022 to the 2021 Rugby League World Cup that was held in England, mostly in the Midlands. So we're talking about Leicester and Sheffield and Manchester, among other places. And that was pretty cool. So my first time ever going to Rugby League. And it was a World Cup, so interesting. I won't become a Rugby League fan, although I don't have anything against it. But that was pretty cool. And next time for the World Cup, maybe I'll go again. And in between, I've got to do some other pretty cool sporting events too. Things like, for instance, I went to the Netball World Cup in Cape Town just a few months ago. That was pretty cool, pretty epic, pretty exciting stuff. And I was there when the biggest number of fans for South Africa showed up, which was pretty cool. Really rousing sort of stuff at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Really enjoyed that experience. But the rugby is such a great game, folks. And for the salty English fans, for the salty New Zealand fans, not New Zealand fans, I mean, they've been pretty good, but the salty French fans, the salty English fans, get over yourselves. There's more important stuff happening in the world than making up stories and complaining about Rossi Erasmus and Eben Etzebeth and the South Africans' boring style of rugby, yada, yada, yada. I mean, look, you can complain about those things. There's nothing wrong with complaining, but just the venal, harsh, nasty comments that some of these people put on there are just really, really sad. Anyway, bottom line, folks, Springboks, 4 World Cups. 4 World Cups. 95, 07, 19, and 23. No team in the world has won 4 World Cups. In fact, no team in the world has won as many World Cups in any sport, if I'm not mistaken, in such a short period of time. The Springboks have been in World Cups for less than 30 years. This is only the 28th year that they've been able to go to World Cups. Remember, 95 was the first one. They were banned in 91 and 87. So 95, 99, 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, 2023. That's 8 World Cups. And guess what? The Springboks have won 50% of those 8 World Cups they've been in. Nobody can claim that they won 50% of the World Cups they've been in any sport. In any sport. Can you imagine that? Also, we break the curse that people were kind of talking about, alluding to a silly little curse that, well, the Springboks only win the World Cup every 12 years because we won 95, we won 2007, 2019. So, well, we won't win again until 2031. Well, folks, we broke that. The Bucks broke that, and now we've won back-to-back. To join the All Blacks is the only team to win back-to-back World Cups. the only team to win 4 World Cups, and the only team to win 50% of the World Cups it participated in. You cannot beat that for incredible stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. There you have it. Well, folks, thank you all for tuning in and joining me today. This was a short notice live stream to just talk about this, and it was driven mostly by reading the comments of people on BBC and some other places complaining about this World Cup. Those who are honest said it was an epic final. Some were overly generous, saying it was the best World Cup ever. In retrospect, maybe we'll say that. I don't know if it was the best World Cup final ever, but it certainly was pretty tense and incredible. I enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Congratulations to the Springboks. It was unbelievable. And for those of you just tuning in for the first time and catching this broadcast, why don't you become a subscriber? It doesn't cost you anything. I mean, honestly, we're not trying to shill you here to become paying members. You're welcome to do that if you like. You're welcome to super chat if you like. But we're not pushing people to be members. But we definitely would like for people to become subscribers so you can watch the content and join us periodically. It would be pretty awesome. Anyway, folks, congratulations to the Boks, to South Africa. The Boks. Congratulations. It's been epic. It's been wonderful. And now it's time to continue with being. So let's take a look at the World Cup rankings when they come out tomorrow and see how far South Africa has gone ahead in New Zealand, because now they beat the number 2 team in the world. So they should have gained points. They should have gained points. And they should be far and above the number 1 team in the world. Just like New Zealand had been for a long time when they were beating the top flight teams. The only way you improve is by beating a team who's close to you or better than you, then you go up in the rankings. If you beat a team that's much lesser talent than you, you get no points from it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks a lot for being here. Be sure to hit the like button if you haven't done it already. I think we got like 150 likes or something like that. I can't really see that very clearly. And we appreciate your patronage on the channel. I will be on later today for Rugby Ascendant. Go to Rugby Ascendant, at Rugby Ascendant, and I'll be covering the Bulls game against Ulster, which should be epic, from Kingspan Stadium in Belfast. I'll be covering that. That's the place where the Titanic was built, in Belfast. I'll be covering that game, the Bulls versus Ulster, a little bit later on, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. in Pretoria, and in Europe, 6 p.m. in 4 p.m. There's only 4 hours difference. UK, I think, is at daylight savings time now. They've jumped back, so it'll just be 4 hours difference between here and England. So 6 p.m., not 7 p.m. Did I get that right? So 8. I said 2 p.m. here, 6 p.m. in UK, 8 p.m. in South Africa. There you go. Bulls coming up. Yeah, 2 and 6 is 8. There you go. All right, folks, thanks a lot. We'll catch you a little bit later. God bless, and thanks for watching the stream, and thanks for liking it if you did. Some of you are here haven't hit the like button yet. Please hit the like button. Hope you like the backdrop. Those leaves on that bush there will be gone in probably a week or 2 when the wind drops them all off. It's fall here in the Northern Hemisphere, and the weather is changing. Cheers. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you on Rugby.